Hi, I'm Ken Paulus. I'm the founder of React Holdings. This is one of our flagship products called Pelvic Wave. It's considered one of the most advanced neuromuscular re-education tools on the planet. Inside of this chair is a high-powered bioelectric magnet that can stimulate muscle tissue up to 4 inches in depth with no skin contact. An average patient will sit on our chair for 24 treatments over 8 weeks. We are cleared by the FDA with an issued 510K and actually cure conditions such as stress incontinence, urge incontinence, mixed incontinence. We use Pelvic Wave to treat prolapse, both uterine, bladder, and rectal prolapse. We also use it for general pelvic floor pain, other inflammatory conditions, as well as hemorrhoids. So it's a really interesting device. As I mentioned, we've cured over 700 people in the last 24 months of urinary incontinence, we're proud to say. And we're excited to get this product more into the market moving forward in 2021 and beyond. So I'm going to demonstrate for you here. This is Elizabeth, who's with us here today. And Elizabeth's a mom. She's had 2 kids, and she's okay with her issues, but we just want to use this as an example and how it works. So we're going to turn it on. So this is 2 hertz. You feel that contraction, right? Okay, so I want you to put your hands to the side here and get your legs kind of balanced to your shoulders. Okay, now maybe scoot up just a little bit. And so we want to be positioned on the perineum. The perineum is the spot located between the vaginal opening and the rectum is where we want to be, and we want to be centered. So do you feel like you're centered there?
I think so.
Yeah, so go ahead and hold your legs still for a second. And so we get what we look for is kind of the dual knock on the knees. That's when we know we're kind of in the centered spot. There we go. So you can see here, once we're in the perineum, you can see her knees will literally do this, okay? So we're timed perfectly. So what we're doing is we're shooting up deep into the pelvic floor musculature, and we're actually building strength in those core pelvic floor muscles. So the issue with incontinence, there's 2 main types. You have stress incontinence, which is a weakening of the base of the pelvic floor, and when that happens often with childbirth, and as the weakening of that pelvic floor occurs, the urethra sits open. And so when a female sneezes, laughs, coughs, or works out, does like a box jump or jumps on a trampoline, literally the force and contraction of her abdomen onto the core bladder will squeeze the urine out, and as it comes down the tube, if the spigot's open, you leak. That's stress incontinence. Urge incontinence is a dysfunction of the core pelvic floor muscles. So the way our bladders work out is when the bladder fills with urine, it creates tenacity and tone against the pelvic floor. And then there's a secondary nerve when you go to the bathroom. So you go to the bathroom, you release, you start to urinate. There's a secondary unconscious response in the body where the pelvic floor muscles do this, and they squeeze the bladder. And by squeezing that bladder, that's what voids the urine and gets the urine out. You have good flow, as they say. Okay, so that's when you have weakening of these pelvic floor muscles, you have what's called overactive bladder, but really it's an underperforming bladder, in that the bladder muscles themselves can't squeeze and get the urine out. That happens when women are pregnant. So the baby is growing in the uterus and puts pressure on the bladder. So instead of that bladder expanding and creating tenacity and tone against the other pelvic floor muscles, it does this. It's only maybe expanding half or a third of what it should be. So the baby comes out, and all of a sudden the bladder fills back up, but it fills back up against muscles that have been weakened for 9 months. No different if you wore a cast on your arm for 9 months. How would your right arm look compared to your left? So that's how urge incontinence occurs. When you have both stress incontinence, which means a weak urethral tone, and you don't void properly, that's called mixed incontinence, and that's really bad and very disruptive. Okay, so we're going to change the tone now. So I'm going to turn this down, and we're going to go to 10 hertz as an example.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's intense, right? So now we're going to set this in terms of reps. So it's at 10 hertz. It's a shallower field, okay? And it's on for 5 seconds, on, off for 2 seconds. So we're repping the muscles. And so no different if you were going to the gym and you're doing a workout routine where you do reps of bench presses or lunges or squats.
It's almost like when it's not doing the pulses, it's almost like this warm, like sensation all the way down my leg.
So that is called blood flow.
Yes.
So we're activating deep core pelvic floor muscles that you've never activated before on a conscious level, right?
Yeah.
So it brings a real awareness to people, both men and women, and so 30% of our patients are male. in that, wow, this is my pelvic floor, and I can feel contracting. This is not something you would go to the gym and contract, right? It's totally involuntary. You're feeling that level of contraction, but it's not something that you would do on your own.
So how does this compare to Kegel exercises?
So Kegel exercise, when you do a pelvic thrust, right?
Yeah.
You're actually only contracting 20% of the pelvic floor musculature.
Okay.
So and you're controlling the pelvic floor musculature that controls the tenacity around the urethra.
Right.
So the core issues related to urge incontinence never get resolved through a Kegel exercise.
Okay, because it's just not enough.
It's not enough, and you can't consciously contract it.
Right.
It's not, the brain and those muscles are not set up for you to activate those in a conscious way.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn this down now. We're going to go to a different setting. This is the mid-range at 23 hertz. You can see how that tone is different, right? That field is different. So the higher we turn up the field, the shallower it goes. So these previous settings that we had at 2 hertz and 10 hertz, we were going 4 inches, right, and 3.5 inches respectively. So if you looked at the way you're sitting, you could feel that almost in your lower abdomen, right, below your belly button, right? And how strong that is. So again, it's super deep. A woman's urethra is only about 1.5 inches long. So you can see how much further we're getting up into that full pelvic floor musculature. And that's really the key in pelvic wave. It's of all the products on the market, it's the only one that's going over 4 inches in depth into the body, getting that full neuromuscular contraction between the brain and the pelvic floor to reconstitute that and get it to work the way it's designed to work. So now I'm going to turn it to 50 hertz. So you can see how shallow that is, right?
Yeah.
So this is only about 1.25 inches deep. Now this is the area that we're contracting the base of that pelvic floor, which controls stress incontinence. So we're contracting the base of that pelvic floor and then releasing, contracting, releasing. And over time, a single 20-minute treatment in a pelvic wave chair generates over 2,500 contractions of the pelvic floor in a single 20-minute session. Over the course of our 24 treatments in 2 months, it's over 50,000 contractions of the pelvic floor. That's a lot of Kegel exercises, right? Over the period of that time, right? And so you can see how intense that is, right? But even still, I only have this at about 75% power. This goes about 4 times stronger than what I've got you on now, which we're not going to do because you kind of jump off the chair.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, pardon me, I gotta jump out. I didn't want to interrupt the video right at a critical switching point.
Okay.
So, what case would it be where you would need to put it all the way up?
So you're a smaller person, right?
Oh, okay.
And so the size of the person really does matter. We get some big people on here, right? And so the power of that magnet to shoot through a glute, to shoot through quads and hamstrings to kind of get in there. We position the magnet so it hits the perineum. But even still, if you're a bigger person, you're sitting down, your perineum is going to be blocked by other tissue. And so we need the magnet pulse to get up deep enough into that pelvic floor and adjust. So now I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn this to constant, okay? And I'm going to slowly turn the hertz down, and you're going to feel that pulse rate go deeper into the pelvic floor, okay?
Oh my gosh. I felt it all the way in my...
Yeah. So we were hitting, when we were turning it down, that field was hitting all kinds of different nerves within the QL, the sacrum, the coccyx, because it's indiscriminate. The radius on that is 2.5 inches, and it was 4 inches depth. So we were going from this field to that field in a matter of seconds, and that's a really interesting way for you to experience it, because once it's in a setting and you're doing this for like 10 minutes, your brain gets accustomed and it just gets used to that treatment, right? And so the real way for people to kind of feel that depth is for us to do that little trick where we turn the hertz
So
down.
we're back at where we started.
We're back where we started, yeah. You can feel that kind of in your lower abdomen, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's deep.
Wow.
So that's
intense.
That's pelvic wave. See?
Man.
What a good sport.
Oh gosh. Let's stand up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
get the-
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.